Your recent visit to the polar bears. What did you learn from polar bears?
It's not just the polar bears. This is a place that my wife and I have gone to a couple of times now. It's up on Hudson Bay, outside of Churchill, the town of Churchill. It's an incredible wilderness area. And this time we're going, we went with a group, we go with a group. And this time we spent part of the time camped out on a lake, and you have to be surrounded by an electrified fence because you're in polar bear country. And the guides like to explain that the electrified fence won't stop the bears; it just slows them down a little bit, and also alerts the guides that there's a bear. It's a To me, there's a few things going on that are so valuable.
Yeah.
One is being in that kind of wilderness in that area. It just inspires such awe for me. And in an educational context, I feel like awe and curiosity and these other elements that students need are all tied together. Is it especially true in an age of AI when information is so available? Students need to have curiosity to go find it, to think about it, to work with it, to interact with it. Because in some ways, it's almost too easy, right?
So
And
easy. Why do we spoon feed them so much?
yeah, and so teachers, schools, states need to increasingly think about how do you inspire students? How do you create awe in students? How do you create curiosity? These aren't really things that you can create in a student, right? You have to create the conditions so students find that in themselves.
So I want to continue the metaphor. So if we're looking at those electrical fences as the guardrails, so to speak, for technology, because you and I have been in this a long, long time.
Yeah.
Like I started with Apex ages ago, what, 20, 25, 26 years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the first reports that we ever relied on was published by Evergreen Consulting, your company, and it
Hmm.
was called Keeping Pace.
Right.
At that time, there weren't a lot of guardrails, but there was sure a lot of fear of the polar bear of technology.
The polar bears of online learning. There were new schools, there were new school models, there were
Yeah.
new instructional strategies. And we called the report series Keeping Pace because all these things were happening, but policies, laws, regulations weren't keeping up. And that was causing a lot of problems. In some states, regulations weren't keeping up in terms of allowing students to have these opportunities to these new options. In other states, there weren't enough guardrails around offering these, and so there were some problems with some of the early schools that cropped up. Uh, it's been about finding the right path for the decades that you and I and some others have been involved.
One of the things that I remember being the most challenging was technology was really so new. Like I remember teaching new teachers, new remote teachers, just where the power button was on the new
Hmm.
laptop that they got. Like basic stuff was part of our professional development that we created with University
Right.
of Phoenix. But what we always really one relied on the Keeping Pace report to help us keep track of 50 different educational standards and models and legal systems. And our ability to regulate that on a national level, I'm not sure has gotten significantly better than when we were wrestling with, okay, we've got one class we want to write, but we want to make it available for students in 50 states. And we want our teachers to be able to teach students across state lines.
If you're a company or a national provider, the reality that you're describing certainly creates some problems. At the same time, it's the laboratories of democracy line, right? And so what we've
Absolutely.
seen is a flourishing of different models across 50 states. And not to say there are quite 50 different models, but there's a lot of different approaches. And we see a lot that we can learn out of what different states have done. Going back to those early days that you're talking
Oh,
about,
yeah.
SREB, the Southern Regional Education Board, played a
It
really
was
big role.
huge,
Yeah,
tremendous.
you can still see the
Their
fingerprint
fingerprints.
of
Yeah.
SREB on the southeastern region of the US, where there
Yep.
still continues to be a lot of online and blended and hybrid learning
They were
activity.
so innovative and advanced for the time.
Yeah.
And then your state of Colorado, boy, they went through the refiner's fire on online learning. Like if there was some sort of scandal or controversy, then Colorado got to be that hot spot for a number of years.
Yes, it did, and that was part of what created the interest in keeping pace. It was also the case that some of what was happening in Colorado with online schools ended up on the front page of the New York Times, which is not the reason that Colorado wanted to be
No.
in the media, but that was what was
Yeah,
happening.
I happen to be with Colorado Online Learning. Your friend Chris Rapp was also
Hmm.
executive director, just following my tenure there.
Yep,
And we both witnessed a lot of the cleanup. But as you said, the laboratory and
yep.
what we gained out of that, as far as learning how to construct our defenses for students and for educators and for systems. I think we gained a lot. I don't think any of that was wasteful. I think that we've learned a lot from those early calamities, shall we say.
And I absolutely agree. You know, the Silicon Valley people like to say you fail forward, right? It's a
Absolutely.
little bit harder when you're working in education. You can't quite do that. Kids aren't widgets, kids aren't software, and so you can't have those kinds of failures. But I am struck by the extent to which entrepreneurs, innovators in other fields will talk about failure as a positive thing. You learn, you move on. Like I said, that's harder to do in education, but there's aspects of that hold true. And I'm proud of Colorado at this point. Colorado has some
I'm
of the
so proud
most
of them. Yeah.
innovative hybrid schools and online schools in the country. I think there's a
Mhm.
handful of regional hubs where there's a tremendous amount of forward-looking activity,
They're brilliant.
and Colorado's one of them.
And one of my favorite elements that is Colorado home built is the consortium concept, where smaller rural districts will combine together for leverage, for buying power, for
Yeah,
advocacy, and their collaborative metrics, I think, are a really nice model for
absolutely.
a
So
lot of different states.
there's about 178 districts in Colorado last time I checked, which I know is a very small number compared to what you have more than 1,000 in California, right? But then again, in terms of population size, that's not actually all so different on a per student basis. Those small districts obviously face serious challenges. It is also the case that it's hard as a small district to be investing as you need to in an online program or in a hybrid program if you're going it alone. There's just certain startup costs, there's certain expertise, there's resources, there's all those pieces that a mid-sized and larger district may be able to pull off. Small district, really
Much
hard.
easier. Yeah.
So exactly what you're talking about, getting together, working across districts, working in a collaborative way, sharing resources, sharing effort, and seeing successes in that way.
So, one of the things that traditional educators tend to ask me about or ask Eric about is who is DLAC and how does it relate to the original organization, which was INACOL, and to other kinds of advocacy groups, and why do we pick DLAC?
DLAC is now the only national organization that's working with online blended and hybrid schools. You mentioned INACOL. INACOL was a fantastic organization. We have quite a lot of people involved in
You
DLAC.
stole a lot of them. Yeah.
We
Like,
did. Now, when
which was a
INACOL was a
brilliant move. You
when
picked the top
INACOL,
one. I couldn't have picked better than Allison Powell.
well,
Like,
we've got
she
Allison
was the
Powell.
mover and shaker
Yeah,
of
yeah.
iNACOL.
And Chris Volker came over
And
from Quality
Chris, yeah.
Matters, another fantastic organization.
Yeah.
Uh, we were under the Evergreen Education Group brand for a lot of
Yep.
years, and we worked very closely with iNACOL. We were never competitive with them in the least.
No,
We
totally
played
supported.
we played a small part in helping to get iNACOL started back in the early 2000s. We remained major supporters. We worked on a lot of projects together. And then in a certain time, about 10 or so years ago, iNACOL decided that it wanted to shift more towards some different issues, things like competency-based learning, which are hugely important.
Yeah.
That left a gap, and we decided to create DLAC, which originally was the conference that was filling the gap that the INACOL symposium used to fill. Uh, when that no longer did, we created DLAC as a conference. And then a few years later, we realized that now having attracted many thousands of people to the first several DLAC conferences, that's what most people knew us as. So we changed the entire organization over to be called DLAC. And so now the membership group, the consulting, the professional development, and the on-site conference, which is coming to Sacramento,
Yeah.
and the online conference, the Digital Learning Palooza, they're all under the DLAC umbrella now. Oh, and by the way, the folks at iNACOL, which then became the Aurora Institute, and which is now called Full Scale, they continue to do fantastic work.
Oh,
It's just in a
absolutely.
different place than we are, and I love what they're doing. I'm glad that they exist and that they're doing what they're doing. We've just moved towards something that we and they used to do together, and when they shifted away from it, we picked up a bit more of it.
So, I was watching after you told me about going on that trip. I was watching some fascinating footage of Churchill
Uh-huh.
and the polar bear jail
Yeah.
that they have there, where so polar bears are really, really smart. Like you gotta give them the brains. Like if
Yeah.
there is an easy food source, we're gonna go to the easy food source. And
Yeah.
so the locals have instead of just shooting them all, which clearly is an option in Canada, or Wyoming or Colorado, like we know how to get things done. It's the shoot, what is it? Shoot, shovel, shut up.
Shovel and shut up. Yeah.
Triple S. Um, however, what they found in researching the habits of the bears there is that if you starve them for like 30 days, like they get water, and they have plenty of reserves, so not cruel and no animal abuse accusations, but um, they are their objective is to discourage the predatory behavior towards humans. So,
And I would say that just the scavenging behavior towards
yeah.
associating food with humans.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, you have black bears
We have
where you
blacks, yeah,
live.
blacks and browns, and they're in
We
everything.
we have black bears literally right around our house, as you do where you are in California.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah,
Polar bears are a lot bigger, and
oh,
therefore
way bigger.
I believe they're the largest land mammal on the planet. Uh,
And they
they're not
think
scared.
we are a delicacy.
They're
Why
not
do
they're
you
not
have
they're
us?
not scared of anything.
No.
And like in Durango, so in Durango where I live, most people don't want to shoot bears.
No.
Most people have bear-proof trash containers so the bears don't get used to
Hmm.
associating food with people and all those things.
Yeah.
Churchill's similar. They don't want to kill bears.
Nope.
So when a bear becomes a problem in town, yeah, just like you said, they have the bear jail. They put the bear in there for 30 days. Now, the thing is, with polar bears, They are very accustomed, their main food source is eating seals on the sea ice in that area at Hudson Bay. And so if a bear is wandering around the town of Churchill, it's not looking for seals in the town of Churchill. It's smelling
Being
people's dinner
lazy.
and trash and stuff like that. Uh, but it's a time of year that they're not used to eating very much anyway. So
Mm.
when you talk about they're not really starving them, it's not cruel. They do want to give them an experience they don't like because they
Yeah,
are trying to convince them to not come back. But it seems like a pretty good solution.
it speaks to the trainability, right? That level of intelligence in the creature. So I don't know if you are aware of the work that Allison and I did in California several years ago when out of the pandemic, we had to have online learning
Hmm.
immediately.
Hmm.
And so what we found was a lot of predation in a lot of technology companies that came in and made promises to traditional school districts that they were going to set them up with every cool kind of system and build them in with the caveat that it was free for a year and then they would be billed.
Yeah.
So Allison and I together did a lot of very intensive bear jail for a number of predatory companies
Yeah.
that were not acting in the tenets of DLAC, nor INACOL, nor what the pioneers of online learning ever intended for the relationship to be between traditional educators and technology educators.
Yeah.
And we were honestly, the two of us, quite disturbed and shocked that it had come to that
Yeah.
it disturbed us. And so
Hmm.
as a result, we put some tech companies in jail with at least the California districts. We were like,
Yeah.
they are off limits. Don't talk to them. They're not legit. They're not authentic.
Yeah.
Um, and what we witnessed because of that was this gap between what's being said in the online learning community and what's being heard in a traditional school system. And I don't think that gap has closed a lot, especially in California, which
Hmm.
is why I'm really glad to hear that SAC is Sacramento, the state capital,
Yeah.
and really the hub for a lot of the majority of our California education initiatives happen out of Sacramento. Um, how do you envision a better future, a better scenario where things like the Rural School Security Act, that Secure Rural Schools Act, that Eric and the SSDA team and the Rural Schools Education Association just barely got through? It feels to me, and we've talked about this with a number of leaders, it feels to me like because we're in vacuums in the different education sectors that we are losing a lot of our power.
Yeah. L- Let me go back to the experience you described during the pandemic.
Mhm.
We within DLAC draw a distinction between what we think of as educational technology and what we think of as digital learning. Educational technology in its various forms has been around for decades. So you're
Centuries.
talking, so yeah, you're right, centuries. Within the last decades, there was TV and radio, and then CD-ROMs, and then computers, and then the
Yeah,
internet, all these pieces.
definitely.
And for the most part, these were technologies that were supposed to be transformative. I mean, you can go back and I know you're familiar with this. You can go back to the stories about how radio was going to completely change education. Of course, it didn't happen. Then TV was going to do it. There's still echoes of that today when you look at the ed tech providers who are working primarily through the very mainstream schools in very mainstream districts. They have a different set of challenges, and they were very challenged when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
The DLAC community is a little bit different for a couple of reasons. One is that because our schools are primarily online, hybrid, blended, even if they're operating within a traditional district, which many are, but within the traditional
Which is
districts,
another evolution
absolutely.
that 30 years ago, neither you or I had a whole lot of hope in. Like that
True.
is a
Very true.
revolution. That
Yes.
partnership and that
Yes.
like the blended hybrid model is probably my favorite out there.
Right. Right. Agreed. So in the DLAC community, the technology is mission critical. It's not optional.
No.
And so it creates a deeper relationship between the schools and the providers. They tend to be better long-term partnerships. They tend to be a more honest relationship and long-term, in the sense that a good provider knows that they need to be serving this school, this client, this customer. They want to be
Mhm.
serving them for a long time. And
Yeah.
I want to be clear. I'm not saying there are zero bad actors within our space. We have to be honest about this as well. But for the most part, the providers at DLAC are really, really, really good.
I
And
agree.
it creates a different dynamic when you come to the reception at the exhibit hall. Attendees want to be there because, first of all,
Yeah.
they're probably seeing companies that are their own providers, and they get to meet them in ways that they might not otherwise. But they also get to
Absolutely.
see who else is out there, who's doing interesting things. It's a
Mhm.
bunch of interesting companies doing fascinating work. Most of them have an education background,
Mhm.
and most of them are truly trying to do what's best for schools and students.
Fully agree. I still think traditional education, digital learning, there's a gap.
Agreed.
So the bottom line question is how do we get these advocates? Because we're advocating for the same hero. Our hero is the student,
Hmm.
right? We're advocating
Yep.
for the exact
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
hero. And yet, we work here on the digital learning aspects and all of the advocacy work that goes there and all of the business innovation. And then here, we work on a lot of policy. I do not see, at least in California, where everybody's bought in to moving forward together and aligning those interests so that the answer has to be yes when we're dealing with policy. It has to be yes when we're asking for funding because we're the bigger bear.
I might be a bit more optimistic than you.
Good. You
Yeah,
also live in Colorado, not California.
I'm optimistic about California as well. I'm,
Good.
I'm,
Me too.
I'm thrilled to be
That's why I
bringing
stay
DLAC.
there.
I'm thrilled to be bringing the Ignite conference out there because I love California.
Hmm.
Uh, and I love the way you talk about yes. I was actually visiting a fantastic program in Missouri just last week, and they've got a giant yes on a in the main room when you walk in, and it's just a
Nice.
mantra of the leader, and that's from a perspective of them saying we are working with all these students who have a different set of needs, and they come to us, students and families with different needs, and we want our answer to be yes, and then we'll figure out how do we deliver on
Yeah,
that.
fill in the
But but
blanks.
back but back to some of these challenges that you're talking about, and no question they are real, they are legitimate, they are unfortunately persistent. At the same time, we as DLAC are getting more involved on the advocacy side. So in the past, we used to play a slightly different role when INACOL was a thing. INACOL was a bit more the advocacy organization, and we were a bit more the education organization in terms of
Okay.
educating legislators and
Yes.
educating
Yes.
school board members and folks like that. Now with INACOL not involved at that level, we are we've been involved with advocating for students, online students, to be able to access free and reduced lunch,
Yep.
which has not been the case.
Yay.
We're looking to take a major step forward with that in Sacramento. We are looking at advocating, we are advocating for availability of remote testing, and California has been a leader in that. So, I hear some of your frustration in being the largest state in the
Well, I'll
U.S.,
add to
bigger than
your
most
list.
countries.
One of the things I'm most proud of that we've accomplished in California is that virtual students are able to participate in the district that they
Yeah.
live in their sports and their social
Oh,
activities.
yes, yes.
That is one of the most important advances that we've seen. Do you remember trying to hold online proms?
I do. California, the educational landscape in California, I believe, is wildly underappreciated for how diverse, innovative, and entrepreneurial it is.
Very.
And much more so than, so obviously, California is one of the bluest states in the country. And but somehow the West Coast blue states have generally been far more innovative around education than the East Coast blue states. California, Oregon, Washington are some of the most innovative and entrepreneurial.
Very much.
I won't bother naming those eastern states. I'm from one of them originally. They don't have a lot going on. We'd love to. We've set a time and said in our blog post, "Hey, we'd love for you folks to show up and
Yeah,
see what's
come
going on."
along. Come with
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
Yeah, that hasn't changed really too much when we
yeah,
were recruiting states to become statewide virtual charter programs
yeah.
and have access to full-time online learning. I'm trying to think Massachusetts was
They
somewhat,
they've come around.
yeah, yep,
There are a couple of great schools in Massachusetts now.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as a whole, the Eastern Seaboard,
Not as
we
much.
it was a hard sell. We did
Yeah.
eventually get South Carolina.
Well,
Uh,
Southeast is really strong.
yeah.
It's the
So,
Middle
but
Atlantic and
anything
North.
up,
Yeah.
they just weren't interested for the longest time.
North Carolina is good. Virginia as a great state supplemental program. They're coming around. Maryland has some good
Nice.
district programs. And then when you look at, let's say, uh, Georgia, for instance, and of course Florida, you're looking at some of the leading states in the country. So
Oh,
there's a lot happening there. But I want
Julie
to go.
in Florida?
I want to go back to your home state of California. You,
Yeah,
it's great work out there.
there is. There is. I think, though, that that theme of a lack of collaboration is very consistent in California. It's not just online and traditional ed, it's small and large school districts,
Yeah.
it's rich and poor school districts,
Yes.
it's just there is an energy here that is hesitant to join forces and for many valid reasons. Like you
Hmm.
can't fault them for the reticence to join forces. And yet with all of the various statewide organizations that are attempting to lobby for very important measures, there's very little grabbing arms and making it a real fight.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
And
more
that's what I
familiar
hope
with
for.
those. Yeah, you're more familiar with those details in California than I am. It may be from my perch 1,000 miles or so east. I see a lot of the good stuff, and you probably see some of the
Oh,
sausage
I see
making.
so much of the good stuff. One of the best and most influential lobbyist groups in California is Capital Advisors. And
Hmm.
I love that they serve a number of those entities that tend to be divided because then they're able to voice the advocacy across those
Yeah,
groups and
yeah.
then speak as a united front for them.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
love that concept, but they are California lobbyists.
Yeah,
I see DLAC as having an opportunity for these disparate entities to unify a voice in terms of digital learning, in terms of technology guardrails, in terms of how AI can and should shape the future of students.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think there's a good case to be made for join forces and do it right.
You mentioned earlier, you touched on the idea of some national policies, and the school meals for online students is an example of that because that, of
Mhm.
course, is a national program. There's also just the fact that clearly most education policy comes from the state level. And so
Yep.
there's also this opportunity for states to be understanding what others are doing. And I think that's a huge DLAC role. It's part of the reason that we are really glad to be bringing many hundreds of people from outside California to California. And
Mhm.
we're glad for the Californians who are going to show up for that cross pollination to be able to learn from each other.
I think that's where the power really lies, is
Agreed.
putting great minds in the same place with the
Hmm.
same set of heroes
Yep.
and fighting against the same enemies that take down
Yeah.
youth potential.
Yeah.
What what can you fight with on that?
The To me, when we think about what are we fighting against, it's pretty rare for somebody to say, yeah, I don't want kids to have a good school option.
Yeah.
So what we're mostly fighting is inertia and a lack of imagination and fear and all
Yeah.
those elements that can be overcome in a community like DLAC and in some of the other organizations that you're
Yeah.
talking about that exist in California.
That's what I see. What are you most excited that sets this conference apart, centered in Sacramento? What will be unique?
First of all, I love that we're finally getting to California for all the reasons that I've mentioned. California has so much going on that I want the rest of the country to know about. I was just 2 hours ago, I was on a video call with somebody from the Midwest talking about some things in California. Went to a school site, downloaded some stuff. I was like, just showing him, and it's like, oh, wow, I had no idea that was happening in California. There's a lot of that.
Hmm.
Flip side is, and I mentioned this earlier, I think there's a fair bit going on in some other states as well. And so it is that cross pollination. I think it's going to go both ways. I think it's going to be incredibly valuable. California is such, in some ways, a microcosm of the rest of the country. You've got the rural
Yes.
schools, you've got the huge
Yes.
school districts. So, what you probably I don't know this for a fact, but I would guess you probably have more smaller and rural school districts than any other state in the country, and probably whole regions.
Gotta be.
You've
Yeah.
also got the second largest school district in the country, right? Uh, you've just got this full range. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting. We years ago did a lot of work with the uh, county offices of education.
Yep.
So,
That was
and
some
that,
brilliant research.
so you talked about the collaboration, the consortium, and that's a role that these middle layers in California, it's the county offices, in other states, it's the IUs and the BOCES and the regional service agencies. So
Yeah.
there's all of these aspects. And by the way, I'm excited to go to Sacramento. Before we started thinking about holding the DLAC Ignite conference in Sacramento, I hadn't been in Sacramento in a couple of decades. And I have to be honest, I did not have the
Oh,
best
I remember. Yeah.
experience when I'd first been there. Now, of course, I was there for like a day, maybe I had, maybe it wasn't really representative. But I have to say,
Yeah.
my impression is Sacramento is an up and coming city
Very
and just an
much.
exciting place to be.
Well,
They've
and
been
I showed you
great to
some
work with too.
really beautiful Greater Sacramento.
Oh,
That's
absolutely. We know there's a lot of people who are staying the weekend after we're running Wednesday to Friday for the people coming from out of state. quite a few of them are sticking around
There's
to
something for
enjoy what
everyone.
California has to offer.
Yeah, there's just unlimited opportunities. We're right there by sports stadiums, by Eric and I go frequently for Broadway in Sacramento and
Hmm. Yeah,
the wineries, the farmlands that you can go access east. If you've got an hour, you can, well, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, you can get to Tahoe.
yeah, yeah.
You can get to San Francisco in less than 2 hours. Like
Mm. Yep,
plus it's President's Day weekend. If I'm a smart person coming out of town, I'm going to make this a vacation work trip. I'm going
exactly.
to spend the front weekend enjoying the scenes and checking out if you're a history buff, oh my gosh, the Railroad Museum downtown is unbelievable.
I've heard that, and I haven't managed it yet, but I'd like to get in and see it.
Just like it's like a time machine
Yeah,
with all of the old trains looking brand new, but from the 1800s, the dining
yeah,
cars with the original china and uh, engines up so that if you're into machinery, you can check out how they were designed and powered and
yeah,
just brilliant displays.
yeah. I love it. There's so much of that in California, just everywhere.
Okay, so if if you're speaking to a traditional education leader who has a million invites to different conferences all year, every year, and they are unfamiliar with DLAC. What what would you say to convince them that this is a conference that even if they don't get it on this year, that they should definitely be planning for?
Education is already different than it was a few years ago. Post-pandemic, it's a different landscape. Traditional districts around the country are facing declining enrollments. They're facing all these other challenges in the current economy. And AI is here and it's about to get bigger. The DLAC community, not just the conference, but the DLAC community is the most innovative group of people you will see in education. And I am certain that there's not a better gathering to have the kind of forward looking and realistic conversations about what's coming next and what school and district leaders should be thinking about and should be doing. And and I really want to stress this point about its educators because I have been in far too many conferences, and I'm sure you have too,
Mm,
where there are speakers who primarily haven't set foot in a school in years, and they're talking about ideas that might be interesting, but they're not actionable.
yeah,
They're not useful. In some ways, they're not realistic. The DLAC community is operating in both this area of, look, and I'm speaking broadly, mostly about the teachers, the school leaders, the district leaders. They're running things right now. They have to, they can't just sit back and think about what AI is going to be like in 2 or 3 years. So those opportunities are at the conference to think about, okay, what can you do differently tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? And we've got a lot of fantastic sessions that are about how do you think about AI, not just now, but what AI is going to be in 3 years. And that is the area in which I feel like the DLAC community is
definite unfair advantage.
rising to another level of importance. And here's why.
Yeah,
The the field of education is going to really be challenged to keep up with AI. And the schools and
in
the
so many
DLAC,
ways.
right? Look, society is too.
Everyone.
I am, right? We
I
are.
know, I know.
And when I look around at what I know is happening
Yeah.
in AI and in Silicon Valley and in fields that are not education. And then I look around at the general response from public education, there's a huge mismatch. Because yes, we need to think about acceptable use policies. Yes, need to think about academic integrity. Yes, we need
Yeah.
to think about data privacy.
Yep.
That needs to be the floor.
Yeah. Get that done and then let's play. Let's
And then let's
play.
move on and let's think about what a world of AGI looks like. AGI, when the point at which anything that you can do from behind a computer can be done by an AI. It's probably 3 years away. It might be less. That is a different
Elon
world.
Musk at the World Economic Forum this week announced that between Tesla and SpaceX, I can't remember which
SpaceX?
of the company,
Yeah.
but he anticipates that they will have humanoid robots ready to go and deploy to do household tasks to assist in caring for the elderly, and that they will have working models available within a year.
I believe it. If you've been seeing what China is already doing, I went to a very interesting talk that was very impactful for me. It was around this idea that broadly speaking, the US and China have two different strategies around AI. It's not clear that one's better or worse, but they are different. The US, first of all, there's all sorts of political and economic differences, but from an AI technology strategy standpoint, the US is really very focused on AGI and superintelligence, whereas China is moving much more quickly around adapting current systems to the current version of AI. So what you just said about Elon Musk, Chinese factories are already doing it. They're already running these incredibly automated factories. Tom Friedman, columnist for the New York Times and author, you may have read his stuff where he's been talking
Mhm.
about this
Love
for a
him.
while. And you know what? This brings us back to the polar bears, the northern lights, the wilderness, the awe, the curiosity, these pieces. These are the things that schools have to be building for right now because the world is changing at a faster pace than it has
Right.
in quite a while. I feel I feel like I have this valuable observation perch, being old enough to have lived through the start of the
Yeah.
internet and the World Wide
Yeah.
Web. Not I should say,
Yeah. We're
not
in a
quite the start
weird
of the
spot.
internet, or at least I wasn't old enough to appreciate the start of the internet per se. But I was in college when email came out. I was in grad school when the World Wide Web
Yeah.
happened. And
Yeah.
so, those of us of my age or
Of
such,
a certain
we
age.
of a certain age, as they say,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, we know the before and after of the World Wide Web. And so we've got a comparison point.
We do.
And this is going to be bigger, a lot bigger.
Already is.
It already
It's
is.
big.
And schools need to be ready. And DLAC is a place to get ready.
So I want to wrap up with the idea of the Northern Lights. So in my mind, if I don't mind that we have protections. I don't mind that there's an electric fence that keeps students safe from the because technology can be dangerous. Like I
Sure.
remember when Zoom got loaded up with all kinds of classrooms out of nowhere
Oh,
and
yeah.
we had to
Oh,
deal
yeah.
with child predators breaking into
Sure.
online classrooms. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there needs to be guardrails. But I don't believe in putting up a cinder block wall where you can't see the sky and you can't see what's around you. I don't think that gives us an advantage. I don't think it acknowledges this generation's level of intelligence and capacity. Like their minds are different than our minds. Their their neuroplasticity is such that this is my dissertation talks about digital natives and digital immigrants. We're
Hmm.
so far past
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
They are born knowing far more technology innovativeness than we will ever imagine. And what a disservice we do to them and to ourselves if we don't allow them to pursue the Northern Lights, if we don't give them permission when they're ready to step outside of the protective area and take care of themselves, but have them see a vision of what they're capable of. Have them, our friends live in Alaska, and the images that they sent at some points during the year in Sacramento, we can see the Northern Lights.
Hmm.
Rarely. But
Yeah.
our version of seeing the Northern Lights and their version of being in the Northern Lights, completely different.
Hmm.
And to me, education is nothing more than a choose your own adventure. Let our students have the freedom and the options with the guidance to dream and to innovate and to make make technology work for humanity in ways that are really of service to every generation. And we're all going to be reliant on this generation of students.
Absolutely. And a quick final thought. The One of the reasons that I was able to take 8 or 9 days and go up there was because I mostly work remotely. To be clear, I wasn't working when I was camping out there, but on the way and
Yeah,
from our
it
hotel in
works.
Winnipeg and that sort of thing. In my life, online technology is an enabler for me to be able to go hike, to get outside, to do all these other things that are very much non-digital.
Yeah,
In the online learning world, online platforms, online courses are often an enabler for students to go find interests in the real physical world because they are no
great.
longer just having to be tethered to a physical place for their education.
Right,
And so
right.
that creates all sorts of opportunities with trips and with travel, whether it's with their families or with internships when they're a little bit older and jobs and
Or real
all these things
jobs. Like
in
if
the
they're,
real world. And
yeah,
so I think when people from the outside look at the DLAC community and they're thinking, okay, these are kids who are, and teachers who are just, they've got their heads down looking at a computer all day.
no,
Nothing could be further from the truth.
no, they're
You've got the
adventurers.
freedom to venture out
Yeah.
into a whole physical, real world.
One of the things I was most proud of our work in Colorado was an initiative to bring online learning to the Navajo Nation.
Hmm.
We wrote the first Navajo language online program, which
Hmm.
qualified students for college scholarships. They had to be able to speak the native language. We did this for the
Hmm.
Apache Nation too, in New Mexico and Colorado. And us bringing in the option for online learning allowed
Yeah,
them to reduce their reliance on
yeah,
foreign teachers,
yeah,
usually from the Philippines, moving to the reservation for a year or less in order to meet the state mandated requirements for education. It was usually not good for the teacher, not good for the students. They were
yeah,
failing in every category for the Arizona state benchmarks. By putting in we did a lot of advocacy with the actual infrastructure to get internet out there, first of all.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then what we found was that those students, because it opened up this opportunity to learn anything they wanted, they would come and sit in their cars freezing in the parking lot. And for a while, the sheriffs would come and think that it was a makeout session or they were out there doing drugs or like there was a
yeah,
lot of concern. All these kids are congregating in the parking lot. They were there with their laptops that had
yeah,
come with the online learning,
yeah,
and they were extending their school days by
yeah,
hours. And they were teaching each other and they were enrolling in AP classes that their
yeah,
intelligence
Yeah,
mandated they should be part of, but had never had an opportunity. That kind of uh, a pathway to be able to be anything you want and learn anything that you're in tune with. That's been that's been 25 years since we initiated that.
yeah,
And it's such a tool for empowerment for
yeah.
every type of student. I think it's the great equalizer. I really do.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think uh, a thing that every teacher knows, but as you get further away from a classroom, from a school, and you get into the state capitals, uh, people tend to forget you can't make a student learn. All you can do is create the conditions in which a student wants to learn. And you do that in a variety of ways that are about showing them a future that they want by instilling an interest in almost anything that they want to pursue, creating conditions to allow them to be curious. These are all the types of things that the DLAC community schools are doing. You know, one of the things I'll hear a lot, and I never get tired of hearing it, is the idea, the number of times I've heard from a teacher, from a school leader, we focus on kids before content. We're teaching kids, we're not teaching algebra. And it's
Oh, okay.
such
Then I agree. I was like, but they're the same thing.
no, because it's the difference between, does a teacher want to come in and lecture for 60 minutes about whatever they want to lecture because they see their role as I am the giver of information? Or are you
Right.
there to nurture a relationship with your students
Hmm.
and to help them be interested in what you're
Right.
saying?
And
And
that is a long, long time tenet that
oh, yeah,
us OGs really built into the architecture of any kind of digital learning. It was the premise for the initial standards. And we echo that in
right,
Legends. We teach the same thing. Like the great hero cannot be the teacher.
right,
It's not
right,
about you. You're not the savior, you're not the rescuer, and neither is the administrator. The hero has to participate in their own rescue.
right,
They
right,
have to take the steps. They
right.
have to build the muscle. You can be the guide, but only if they accept you as their guide. You can't force them. You can give them ideation, you can show them opportunity, you can give them the reassurance and the
Yeah,
stability to say, it's okay to learn. Don't be afraid. Go ahead. Go check this out. See if
yeah,
it feels good. And
yeah,
to encourage all those new pathways. But if they don't generate it, they never generate the neural pathways to actually become an expert at it.
right,
And we deprive them.
right.
But in my mind, online learning has always had that straight from the start.
Agreed. And I also don't want to come across as suggesting that none of this is happening in mainstream schools.
No, it totally does.
It does. What happens with some of the online and hybrid schools is because they're being reimagined and newly developed, it's much easier to systematize some of what we're talking about.
Right.
Whereas I think too often in a mainstream school, what we're talking about relies on truly exceptional teachers, and they are there.
They are so there.
But at a systems level, you can't rely on everybody being exceptional, right?
Sadly.
Everybody can't be above average by definition.
No, exactly.
But you can design
You can.
schools and systems to take
And when
advantage.
these entities work together, like you just said, in a blended learning environment, you get the best of both. Like
Agreed.
as an administrator, if
Absolutely.
I'm sitting here and I know my math department is just not where it should be, why am I not able to just add in some online learning support so that they
Yeah,
have a teacher that's facilitating it, but so that those students that are meant to excel in that subject have every opportunity to learn from the best instructors out there
totally.
in a specialty capacity, or those that are on the lower spectrum of math capacity, they get additional help. A
Yeah,
blended scenario gives you freedom.
exactly. Exactly.
My favorite. We all worked hard to get that blended model,
Mhm.
even
Y-
in consideration
Oh
not
yeah.
that long ago.
Oh yeah.
It's my favorite. Like I love speaking to students who, for whatever reason, whether it's a social issue, a health issue, a preference issue, a family issue, a religious issue, a work issue, but need that flexibility in order to really make the most out of their pathway that they choose, that they have a menu of options that are all just at their fingertips that they can program an educational experience. Uh, I always loved the special ed references of individualized education plan,
Yep.
but I always thought everybody should have one of those. Why can't we all
Oh,
have an IEP?
we did some work around funding years ago. This was also fairly early days, but one of the core ideas was just what you're talking about. In a traditional setting, a certain number of students have an IEP. In an online setting,
Everybody does.
essentially every student should have their
Yeah,
own plan, and
yeah.
in many schools they do. Yeah, exactly.
And in some of our most innovative programs, they've developed learning management systems that are choose your own adventure, that have mastery learning, that have didn't seem to get this. How'd you like to play a game? And let's see if we can't figure out why we didn't do well on that test. And then they teach it a different way, or they pre-screen.
Hmm.
I've seen several schools that pre-screen for what type of learner are you, and then the
Sure.
curriculum is customized so
Yep.
that if they're auditory, they're getting a voiced. If they're visual, they're seeing a lot of illustrations, and you have an opportunity to learn the exact same content in whatever way most speaks to your intelligence. That's learning.
Agreed. Agreed. And many of these schools are reimagining the role of teachers and other professional adults working with these students. So these schools will often have one person who knows the student academically, knows
Mhm.
this student's academic interest, school interest, job, career, family, all these pieces to understand where they want to go. And again, so many educators understand this, but we haven't built an education system
Not yet.
that seems to understand it. Not in the mainstream.
Not yet.
We're getting there.
I mean, if you look just in our lifetime about where the customizability and uniqueness for the education experience for a student has gone, say, let's just cap it at 30 years. In 30 years, we went from primarily lecture driven,
Hmm.
uh, listen to me, do what I say, everybody's the same, into a very different level of understanding the neurobiology of each student, to understanding and incorporating the unique needs.
The early days of K-12 online learning talked about these concepts a lot.
We did.
And in some ways, it was more aspirational than real because it was still hard to do with the early systems, right?
It was really hard.
This is one of those things AI seems very likely to truly do
I'm so
because
excited for it.
it's not hard to imagine. Let's think about an English language learner, for instance.
Right.
It's not hard to imagine an AI model that you say, okay, this is a high school freshman. Here's her level of English language fluency.
Yep.
And here's another student who's a little bit different. Let's just write
Yeah.
different versions, same
Yep.
academic standards, same scope and sequence, same everything, but an AI can write slightly different content,
Yep.
and you can multiply that by literally every student
Eric
needs.
just tested that 2 weeks
Really?
ago. We are debuting Kairos in
Hmm.
Prototype 4 at the conference. Kairos is the Legends strategic intelligence agent.
Hmm.
So he's really good at business, but I had Eric test him as a school administrator, and that's the
Yeah.
exact prompt he gave. Was
Yeah.
I've got this ELA student, he's 3 grades behind, and he fed
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
student data and said, these are the programs that we're using for curriculum. Design a 90-day plan to increase this student's level by 1 grade. Boom. It's got a plan. Then he said, build out all the curriculum based on
Yep.
these texts, these programs that we're using. Boom. I was so proud of Kairos. He rocked it because I hadn't
Well,
trained him to do all those pieces. He's trained on the Legends model that the hero is that student. So we understand the hero and that student's landscape and what that student needs.
yeah.
And then we program.
Well, I love that Eric is doing this because here's what I worry about. Here's what I hear too often
Hmm.
from school district leaders.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got somebody paying attention to AI. And my view is no, 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 no.
Look out.
You need to be using it. You need to be using it in the ways that we're talking about. You need to be using it every day. You need to understand what's happening because if all you're doing is hearing other people talking about it,
It's not the same.
it's not the same. It's not the
No.
same. And it's changing so fast.
Yeah, our panel discussion is actually centered around that. It's called intergenerational
Hmm.
legacy and how to ensure that your experiences with AI are relational so that you work in concert with
Yeah.
a partner. Like
Yeah.
Kairos is
Yeah.
legitimately our strategic
Yeah.
IA. We
Yeah.
use him day in and day out. My entire team uses him. All our clients use him. And he is invaluable in saving time. And if I have an off day, Kairos doesn't. He's not
Yeah.
subject to sickness. He's not subject to bad moods. He is subject to updates. He disappeared for like 5 days when
Well,
chat updated last week, and I was like, "Oh, where did you go?"
I, as we're talking, I also want to be clear. I'm I know about hallucinations. I know about all the problems. I know about
All of it.
the
Yeah.
people having these delusions because of AI. And we need to look at all this realistically and accurately,
Mhm.
and not ignore all those very, very real problems. But those problems are not a reason to not
That's
be
why we have an
engaging.
electric fence. There are things
Exactly.
we can do, and there are things that we do not do.
Although,
And
like I said at the start, the fence was there to slow down any bears trying to get in and to let the guides know
right.
it wasn't going to stop them.
Nope, I
And
agree. It
there's
doesn't.
there's there's a strong analogy there too.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, give us an invite for anybody in California or anybody within a flight that may still want to register and get here for the February conference, and also include, please, an invitation to become a member of DLAC and those resources that will accompany that membership.
We're going to be in Sacramento, February 18th to 20th. We would love to have you all there. Kim, I know that you and I have worked on getting some special invitations for a one-day offer for folks in California, especially. We recognize that those folks who are hearing about this right now it's a bit late, but we'd love to have them. We've worked in some discounts for those folks, so I know that you're going to be putting that out there, and we look forward to seeing so many of the people that you're in touch with about this. I do want to mention, as you touched on, DLAC is a year-round community, and so there's ongoing webinars, meetups, PLCs, all these pieces as well. So for especially for those who can make it, I hope you don't look at it as a 1 or 3 day one-off, but the start of a longer working relationship and being part of the community.
We're excited.
Thank you, Kim.
These are the voices rising through time. Truth in the rhythm, fire in the line. From silence to signal, from echo to flame. Legends don't whisper, they rise with a name. Voices of legends. This is the upcast. Voices of legends. This is the upcast. Voices of legends, 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 this is the upcast.